Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be using a Pokémon from the first generation. Slowpoke is kinda famous for being goofy and a bit weird. The evolutions are also weird because of the shoulder biting on the tail or on the head. Anyway, getting back on track, the rules I will follow today are that I can only use my starter in combat. I can't use items from my bag in battle. I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Slowpoke is not that powerful of a Pokemon. The stats are very bad, especially the speed. With 15 base speed, I am sure most things in the game will move before me, even if I am way overleveled compared to them. The one redeeming quality is the moveset. It can learn a lot of different moves with TMs, but the level up attacks are not that great. I always thought that Slowpoke would have a decent special attack, but instead the physical one is quite a bit better. For the start of the game that's not too bad, as we only have Tackle as our damaging move. Between the low base power and not stab, it does not do that much, and so for the Trico I had to improvise a bit. In our starting moveset, we also have Yawn, which puts the enemy to sleep with a 1 turn delay, and also Curse, which for a non-ghost type Pokemon, it increases my attack and defense at the cost of speed, but since my speed is already so low, it is not really that much of a loss. The start of the game is not too hard, and between those moves I can take care quite easily of most things I come across. The trainers with Shroomish are very annoying because of Absorb, but other than that the journey is pretty smooth. For the fight against the first gym leader, I leveled a bit until I learned Water Gun. That move is not too powerful, but between stab and the fact that her Geodudes are 4 times weak to that, they go down very easily in a single attack. That is great, but it also has a couple of drawbacks. First of all, since I one-shotted them, she can keep the 2 potions for her ace, and since Nosepass is only weak to it, she has plenty of time to use them on it. That makes the fight drag on for quite a while, but eventually I can finish off her ace and get the first badge of this region. Next I did the couple side quests around town, and before we can leave we have to do the optional fight against May. This time around she does not have a Torkoal, which would be quite easy for me, but instead I have to deal with this Wingull. For this point in the game, Wingull is not too bad, and it manages to cripple my attack quite a lot thanks to a bunch of growls. I did recover some stats with Curse, but not that much, so for the Trico I had to once again put it to sleep with Yawn before using a bunch of Curse to get my attack back to a decent level. After a whole bunch of setting up, and when my HP got kinda low, I put the Trico back to sleep, but this time I took the 3 turns to deal a lot of damage to it, and eventually I was able to take it down too. Now that we are free to leave, I can go to the next island where we have to challenge the gym leader Brawly. The fight against him should not be too hard, his Pokémons only have fighting attacks, which I resist, and since I also learned Confusion along the way, my DPS should be fine. The match was going kinda well until Meditate pulled out a light screen. That move increases his team special defense by 50% for 5 turns, and that makes it so they are somewhat tanky to my special attacks. That's not great, because Meditate is not really a problem, it only has Focus Punch, so I can prevent it from attacking, but Makuhita has quite a few more moves. And if he has enough time to set up with Bulk Up, even if I resist his attacks, he will still deal a lot of damage. Eventually the screen runs out and I can finish off his ace before anything bad happens. Moving on, in Slowpoke we have to take down a couple of Team Aqua grunts. These guys are a bit annoying because they have 2 Carvanas. I cannot hit them with Confusion, which at this point is my best move, and instead I have to use either Tackle or Water Gun. Water Gun does not do much damage because it is resisted, and Tackle makes it so I get hit by the Rough Skin. I should consider myself lucky because in all of this I did not get hit by Bite, which at this point I'm sure it will hurt quite a bit. After defeating them and listening to Archie for a little while, we have to grind quite a few levels, because our next fight is going to be against May, and this time around her team is quite scary. Not so much the Wingull, at this point it is not that big of a threat, but her starter has now evolved into a Grovyle, and it knows both Absorb and Pursuit to deal very good damage to me. Once again, I used the power of Sleep to get a few free turns against Grovyle, and that was enough to take it down before it could do too much damage to me. The remaining Slugma is not exactly a threat, and with that we are done with her too, and we can get to Moville. Here is where things kinda fell apart. Wattson is a very powerful trainer because he has the type advantage and his Pokémons are way too fast for me, so they can always hit me before I can do anything to them. I tried him at multiple levels with different strategies, but it took quite a few attempts and a good number of level ups to have a chance to defeat him. By now I also learned Headbutt, which is by far the most damaging move in my arsenal, but I most likely will not be able to use the flinching since I am so slow. The reason I won this fight is because Manectric did not attack me for 2 turns, and that gave me enough time to put it to sleep, and while he was taking a nap I defeated him. Magneton also screwed up because he tried to confuse me, but I am immune to that, and with that free turn I also survived long enough to put it to sleep, and then defeated him while he was also taking a nap. Luck played a major factor in that fight, but I am glad it's over and we can now move on with the rest of the story. As we reach Meteorfall Caves, we find the 2 teams and we are informed about Max's plan, so we climb the local volcano to try to stop him. Of course, the only way to do so is with the Pokémon Challenge, and while his team is not too threatening, it is also kind of annoying. At this point my moveset is still somewhat lackluster, so I am not able to defeat Mightyena very fast, and he has plenty of time to lower my stats. At least for now that is the only dangerous part of the team, since the other 2 Pokémons are a one-shot with super effective moves. Once we have rescued the region for the first time, we can get down and challenge the next gym leader. Flannery uses mainly fire types, which is extremely good for us, since I can resist their stab moves and I can deal very good damage back with my super effective water gun. That move is not quite enough to take care of Torkoal very easily, especially if he uses Sunny Day, but fortunately I can switch to Confusion. That move still deals respectable damage. Unfortunately, I got paralyzed by one of the many body slams, and that caused me to take a few extra turns to defeat it, especially because Flannery kept the 2 hyper potions for her ace Pokémon, and so I sort of had to defeat it 3 times. Still not the hardest gym, so I have no right to complain. Now the only thing left to do is to backtrack quite a bit and get to Norman. Here I lost once because of sleep, which I guess is fair since I won many of the fights with that status myself. In the second attempt I played it a bit more carefully, and also I learned Psychic during the fight, almost like I calculated that. Psychic is a great move, it has a lot more power compared to Confusion, but it is still not enough to take down Slacking in a 1v1. So here I had to be the one abusing sleep this time, and that gave me sort of enough turns to defeat the big Yeti. Even though special attack is not Slacking's highest stat, it still deals a lot of damage with the dark moves, but since his terrible ability makes him skip half of the turns, I still have a fighting chance against a guy with more stats than many legendaries. Linoon sort of fumbles the bag with the belly drum, but I'm very glad I don't have to spend any more time on that fight. As a reward, we get Surf, which we can use to explore more of the region, but it's also a great move, and I immediately thought it to Slowpoke. Eventually we get to the Weather Institute, where we have to solve a hostage situation by defeating the Team Aqua Admiral Shelley without too many issues, even though her dark moves still deal a lot of damage. The next interesting fight is going to be against May. This fight is generally very easy because at this point you have way more levels than her, but this time around Grovyle hits me with a Leaf Blade, which fortunately does not crit, otherwise I could have lost this fight. Between that and a few attacks from Lombre, my HP gets somewhat low considering how easy this fight should be. Anyway, next up we have the fight against the 6th gym leader, and Winona uses her flying types. That is not too bad for me. I have Ice Beam, which can make quick work of most of her team, but not all of it. Pelipper and later Skarmory are a bit annoying to deal with, especially the Pelipper since it knows Protect and can make you waste a lot of time. To sort of stop her from spamming that move, I used Yawn, so at least she cannot protect while sleeping. Skarmory goes for the very troublesome Sand Attack, but I do not end up missing many Ice Beams against her last Pokémon, even though I also got paralyzed by a Dragon Breath. Man, I'm not getting very lucky this run. Now that we have the Fly HM and badge, we can resume our journey, and in the next town over we have to do the last optional fight against our rival. This time around, the fight is going to be somewhat similar to our previous one. Grovyle still outspeeds me and deals a lot of damage with Leaf Blade, but again, without a crit, I do not risk losing too much. The only difference is that her team takes a little longer to take down because she has more Pokémons and they are a bit more tanky. Once we are done with that too, we can go to the Pokémon Cemetery where we receive the Magma Emblem. With this new key item, we can enter the cave where Groudon is, and after cutting our way through a bunch of Team Magma grunts, we can challenge their leader. The fight against Maxi sort of starts funny, because Mightyena uses Swagger, and since my ability prevents me from getting confused, I only get a +2 in attack, but that is useless because at this point my moveset is fully special. All of that is still good for me, since Mightyena could have done more annoying stuff instead. Once we have failed to stop Maxi from waking up Groudon, we have to go to the Team Aqua base, but here we also arrive a bit too late and can only challenge one of their admirals. The Mightyena Swagger stuff happens again, so that was a bit weird, but I'll take it. Once we have cleared this place out too, we can go and grind quite a bit, because our next fight is going to be very challenging. I sort of hoped to be carried by Surf in the fight against Tate and Liza, but since I do not have any boosting move yet, that did not really happen. I even had to use the rare candies because the fight against them was very challenging. My damage output unfortunately is not very good and nowhere near enough to defeat their Pokémons in one attack. Surf is a good move against them, but Solrock and Xatu have Sunny Day, and if they use it, my damage goes down even further. Not only that, Solrock also knows Solar Beam, which is a super effective move that he can fire off in a single turn. I still had Yawn to maybe put them to sleep and give me enough time to defeat them, but with the one turn offset, that was not super reliable. Even with 30 levels over them and a bunch of super effective moves against their Pokémons, the winning fight was extremely close. I just barely managed to leave Lunatone's Psychic with 3 HP and finish it off with one last Surf. After all of the stress from that fight, it's time we do something a bit more chill. In this island, we also have to help Steven deal with the leadership of Team Magma, and fortunately for me, the fight against them is a lot simpler. This time around, we are not alone, but also have a partner in Metang, which will be able to deal damage with us and also take a few hits for us. Not only that, but by defeating Tate and Liza, we get the Calm Mind TM, which was the last piece of the puzzle I needed to make this moveset work, at least a little bit. I took the first few turns of the fight setting up with Calm Mind, so that when I was ready, I could just spam Surf over and over again. It's not always the best choice, but it is by far the most easy to use, and after a few more turns of throwing water on them, we can KO all of their Pokémons, and so we are finally done with the Team Magma. After this encounter, we are given the Dive HM by Steven. We have to use that move to reach the Seafloor Cave, where we arrive early this time, and we have to challenge Archie to try to prevent him from waking up Kyogre too. Much like with Maxi, his team is not too challenging. I have good moves to take care of his Pokémons, it's only a matter of time before they all fall. In this playthrough I don't even have to worry about confusion messing me up, since my ability makes me immune to that status effect. Once we have defeated him, the orb activates anyway and wakes up the legendary. Since now both of them are active, their weather abilities conflict with each other, making the weather a bit of a mess in the region. To stop all of that, we have to go ask Rayquaza for help, and fortunately for humanity, he is more than willing to help. By screaming a bit at the two, he makes them stop fighting, and with that we can resume our journey. Finally, we can take on the last gym leader. Juan uses water types, which is not too bad for us. This time around, I have Calm Mind to increase my damage output by quite a lot. I may have gotten a bit overboard as I used Calm Mind 6 times, maxing my special attack and defense. Unfortunately, since Slowpoke is so slow, this is not as good as it could be in many other runs, because even though I now have enough damage output to one-shot everything he throws at me, since I am so slow, I still have to take one of their attacks. And while I am very resistant to their special moves, the physical ones will still hurt a lot, not to mention all of the status effects. That's the main reason why slow Pokémons are not so good in solo runs. Now that we have acquired all of the badges, we can also use all of the HMs, and with that we can finally enter the victory road. Here we are immediately reached by Wally, the secondary rival of the game, who wants a proper challenge. His team improved quite a lot from the single Ralt that he had in Mobile, and of course I got paralyzed again. Man, these status effects are really starting to get on my nerves. The speed drop does not really matter, but if I get paralyzed many times, I end up losing because I skipped too many turns. While this was not the easiest fight by far, I still was able to defeat him in the first attempt, but the fact that I had so much trouble with him does not give me a lot of hope for the league. As soon as I reached the league, I tried entering at the level I was at, but I quickly realized that would never happen. I leveled a bit more, got some more rare candies and all of that, but still the fight against Sidney was not so easy. I also changed my moveset a little bit, as I forgot Ice Beam for rest. While Ice Beam will be very useful against Drake, I think I will still be able to deal with him by using Psychic, and the recovery of HP and clear status effects from rest I think will be much more important throughout the many fights of the league. The other place where Ice Beam was good is here against Sidney, since Shiftry and Cacturne are both very annoying to deal without it. Fortunately for me, Cacturne did not use Leech Seed this time around, and that is very good news for me, since the HP loss from that move every turn can get very problematic. After finally defeating the first member of the Elite Four, I was a bit too excited and forgot to recover the PPs for Surf. That is very bad news for Sidney, since she also has the pressure Pokémons, which will make me waste even more PPs. Realizing that halfway through the fight made me switch tactics a little bit. I used a few Calm Minds as Banette was throwing Shadow Balls at me, and then I went on the offensive with Psychic. Fortunately, most of her team is only Ghost and not Dark. The only Pokémon that will be problematic is Sableye, but by saving a couple of Surf PPs for him, I should be able to deal with that Pokémon too. Rest here also is quite useful as it allows me to recover some HP, but not too much so as they are free to hit me multiple times while I am sleeping. Still, the fight against her went somewhat okay, and we can move on to the third one. I was not too worried about Glacia. I can resist their ice attacks, so as long as I don't get frozen, this should not be too problematic. Calm Mind also increases my special defense, so ice should not be a problem. Instead, for like the third time in the run, I got paralyzed by a move. Instead, for like the third time in the run, I got paralyzed by Body Slam or something like that. At least this time around I have rest to remove the paralysis. Other than that, the fight against Glacia should not be too dangerous. The only thing I have to sort of worry about is one of their Glacias, because it has explosion, and if he crits with that move, I am sure he can be able to one-shot me. Sort of fortunately for me, the Glacias also have Crunch, and since that is a super effective move, they somewhat prefer to use that instead of blowing up. And since Dark is special in this game, I am much more protected against that move. Things get scary against Walrein since it paralyzes me again, but I am able to get through it. Last but definitely not least of the Elite Four is Drake. He could be a problem since his Pokémons are very fast and quite powerful, so I took the time to set up a full bunch against Shelgon. Usually that could be problematic too, as Rock Tomb lowers my speed, but since today I am surely going to be slower than everything else he has, the speed drops should not matter much. Even though I am at +6 Calm Minds, their physical attacks still hurt a lot. And I even get flinched twice by Salamence, so oof. At this point I thought I was dead, but I somehow survived on a single HP against Altaria, and that was just enough to allow me to get a rest off. Thanks to the Chesto Berry, I can wake up immediately and resume the sort of sweep, but I seriously doubt it can be called that. Anyway, finally we are at the last fight in the game. Wallace and his water Pokémons. Much like with Juan, this fight should not be too problematic. Wailord can be a bit annoying with Double Edge, since the damage from that move will not be lowered by Calm Mind. Still, the damage is not super high, so as long as I am careful, I should be able to fully set up against Wailord. Once I used a lot of Calm Minds, I decided to take a rest, because my HP was starting to get very low, and since I am so slow, I will surely be defeated by the rest of his team before I can take them out. With all of these boosts, things were looking very good for me, but there are still a couple of dangerous moves. Firstly, Leech Seed from Ludicolo, since that damage is undodgeable, and it very much adds up after a while. Fortunately, he only tries to dodge a bunch, but it does not work out for him in the end. Toxic is also a move that regularly is quite scary, but since I have rest this time, it's not that big of a problem. Milotic desperately tries to do anything to me with Surf, but with all of that special defense I got from Calm Mind, it does a handful of HP points each time. Whiscash surprisingly survives a hit thanks to amnesia and fires off a hyper beam, but that's a bit too little too late to deal with me. Gyarados' Earthquake is also quite powerful, but again not quite enough to stop me. It was long and hard fought, but finally Slowpoke is the champion of the region. I seriously thought that the run would be easier, but turns out that sometimes I also overestimate the Pokémons. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff. If you have any feedback, video ideas, or comments, leave them down below. I'll be sure to read and answer all of them, and I'll see you next week. Bye!